May is kind of a weird month. If you get paid every week or every 2 weeks, it's one of those months where you're going to receive an extra paycheck. But is it really extra income? Today I'm going to show you how I budget when I receive an extra paycheck in the month and how it's really important to plan ahead.
I try sharing my story to remind readers that there is a way out. That with hard work, dedication, determination, motivation, it's all about having a plan for your money, and that's what gives you the true control.
Holy crap, it just changed my life. They're like, oh man, Nico, it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes work, but no more credit card debt. Welcome to the Budget Mom YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about that crazy extra paycheck that you will receive if you get paid weekly or every 2 weeks throughout the year. There's going to be 2 months out of the year where you're going to receive quote unquote an extra paycheck. But is it really considered extra income? And how should you plan to budget for it? And what should you do with it? Today I'm going to be giving you a couple of different examples on what it might look like to receive an extra paycheck and how I budget my income when this happens. So I'm going to be showing you 2 examples. One is going to be if you get paid every 2 weeks, and one is going to be if you get paid every week. The most important thing to remember when you get paid multiple times a month is to plan ahead. And how I plan ahead is I use the calendar method incorporated into my overall budgeting method. This helps you see exactly where your income needs to go and what you need to plan for. So let me show you how I plan and budget my money when I receive an extra paycheck. So the first example that I want to show you today is what it looks like when you get paid every 2 weeks. Now, just for informational purposes, this is a full-on example. The bills are example, the paycheck amounts are all examples. They're just made up numbers, but the steps and process and the method will still be the same. So in this example, I use the highlighter method when I fill out my budget calendars. My budget calendars are essentially a calendar that lists out my paychecks and all of my monthly bills that I have to pay. It also includes any appointments or any doctor's visits or any events or holidays happening in that month that also need to be included in my budget. So as you can see, for the month of May, I am getting paid every other Friday. So the 3rd, the 17th, and here on the 31st is that quote unquote extra paycheck. So each paycheck represents a different color on my budget calendar. All of the bills that I'm paying with each corresponding paycheck matches the color. So for example, on May 3rd, I am getting paid $1,500 per paycheck. For this example, I'm paying my car payment that's due on the 7th and my daycare expense that's due on the 12th. My car payment's $250 and my daycare is $500 and my paycheck is $1,500. So because I'm a paycheck budgeter, I create a budget every single time I am paid. So when I get paid in this example on May 3rd, I'm going to have a budget that looks like this. I'm paying my car, which is due on the 7th, daycare, which is due on the 12th, and here is why it's so important to plan ahead and especially look at 2 calendars when you are doing your budgeting process. So right now we're talking about the month of May and getting paid in May, but we really need to be looking at what's happening in June as well. Most people who get paid more than once a month have a very hard time paying larger bills with one paycheck. So for instance, rent that's due on June 1st is $1,000. If I paid that bill with one of my paychecks, that's going to leave me very little money left over for my variable spending or saving or paying off debt. So the best way to handle large bills like your rent for the following month is to break it between your different paychecks. So you break it down between paychecks. As you can see on my rent on June 1st, I'm using my paycheck on the 3rd, which is pink, my paycheck on the 17th with this blue, and my paycheck that I'm receiving, my bonus or extra paycheck on the 31st, I'm putting $200 toward rent. Every single time you get paid, you're going to create a budget that looks like this. Now, even though I'm talking about my May 3rd paycheck, I'm writing a bill that's due for the following month in June, which is my June 1st rent. I'm setting aside $500. Now, it's up to you on how or where you want to set that money aside so you don't spend it, because you're going to have to set it aside so you have the money when the bill comes due on June 1st. For me, I just leave it just sitting in my checking account because I only use my checking account for paying bills and for receiving income. I never swipe a debit card. I'm an all cash spender. So for me, it was okay to leave it just sitting in my checking account. If you do swipe your debit card and have a hard time with tracking what you have left in your checking account, I highly suggest pulling out the money that you're setting aside for these bigger bills, put it in a cash envelope somewhere, somewhere safe. That way you have it set aside so you have the money when it comes due. For my paycheck on the 17th, I'm paying a lot more bills as well as setting aside money for my June 1st rent. I'm paying my phone bill on the 21st, my credit card, my medical insurance, and my loans. So I'm paying these bills because I don't get paid again until the 31st, which is my extra paycheck. So for that budget, you're going to have a budget that looks like this. Here's my paycheck on May 17th, right here. I'm getting paid $1,500. I'm paying the phone for $100, credit card that equals $250, medical insurance for $200, and loans for $100, as well as setting aside $300 for my rent on June 1st. All of these bills equal $950. If I subtract my bills from my income, that gives me $550 left over to use for my variable spending, which is my cash envelopes, extra debt payments, extra savings, or if you're doing sinking funds, you can use that money there as well. For my last paycheck, the paycheck that we all considered extra income or extra paycheck, that's going to happen on May 31st, $1,500. I will be using this extra paycheck on the 31st to cover the rest of my rent, as well as my car payment in June and my daycare in June, because I'm not getting paid again until the 14th. So even though this is a paycheck we don't normally receive, it's still being used to cover bills until our next paycheck on June 14th. So your paycheck for your last paycheck on May 31st is going to include $200 to finish out paying your rent, your car in June, and your daycare in June. Even though we're budgeting our money for our May 31st paycheck, you are covering bills that are due in the beginning of June because you don't get paid again until the 14th of June. So do you see in this example how looking at your calendars and planning ahead is so crucial? If you didn't plan ahead and if you were not looking at your paycheck bill dates and your expense dates for your normal monthly bills, you would say to yourself, well, this is not a paycheck that I normally receive, so it's extra money. But it technically isn't, because you still have to cover your bills in the beginning of June because you don't get paid again until the 14th. Now, I'm not saying you won't have any extra income because of the way that you receive your third paycheck. It just needs to be planned for in your budgets. So maybe you have a little bit more money left over, but you're not going to have the whole entire paycheck as extra income. So that's what it looks like if you get paid every 2 weeks. Let's look at an example if you get paid every week. This is an example of what it looks like when you get paid weekly. In this example, we're getting paid every Friday, and we're getting $750 for every paycheck. The same thing in the same method and steps is used as if you were getting paid every 2 weeks. So you would literally look at your income and your budget every single time you were paid. So on your May 3rd paycheck, which is $750, you have to pay your car payment, which is only $250. That gives you quite a bit of money left over. So you do have to make sure you have enough money to cover your June rent because you don't get paid again until the 7th. So with my May 3rd paycheck, I'm going to set $250 aside for rent, and that looks like this. With your May 3rd paycheck, you're paying that car payment on the 7th as well as setting $250 aside for rent. That's leaving you $250 left over to use for the week for food, gas, clothing, fun expenses, miscellaneous, whatever your cash envelopes are. For your paycheck on May 10th, you have the same $750 in income and you're going to be taking care of only one bill, your daycare bill. It's $500, it's due on the 12th. That eats up a significant part of your May 10th budget. So you're going to be paying one bill, and so on your paycheck budget, you're just going to be listing your daycare. That gives you the same $250 left over after taking care of that bill to use for your variable spending, cash envelopes, extra debt, or extra savings. Now, the paycheck for the 24th, for the 17th, you're going to be paying a couple of different things. Your $100 phone bill, you have to pay that before you get paid again, as well as we are still setting aside money for rent, $500. So because the only bill we had to pay with our paycheck on the 17th was only $100, that gave us a whole lot of money extra to throw towards rent to make sure we have enough for that when that comes due June 1st. So that budget would look like this. You're paying that phone bill on the 21st as well as setting aside $500 for your rent that's due on June 1st. This leaves us with two other paychecks that we're going to receive. Now, one of the questions I get is in the Budget by Paycheck workbook, there are only 4 paycheck bill trackers. So the number one question I get is, how do I budget for that 5th paycheck if there's only 4 paycheck bill trackers in the workbook? You combine paychecks. So your paycheck on the 21st and the 31st can be combined into one paycheck bill tracker or budget that looks like this. Here's your paycheck on the 21st or 24th and your paycheck on the 31st. Both of these are $750, which gives you a total of $1,500 that you're working with for these 2 paychecks. With these 2 paychecks, you're paying the rest of May's bills, which is your credit card, your medical, and your loans. With your paycheck, that extra paycheck that you're receiving on the 31st, you're taking care of your rent, the remaining part of the rent that you owe for rent, and your car. Here's why planning ahead is so important and using your calendars. You might be asking, well, I get paid on the 7th. Why can't I just pay my car on the 7th with that paycheck? My car is only $250 and my paycheck's $750. Because you have a daycare payment that's due on the 12th for $500, and you have to pay that again before you get paid on the 14th. So this paycheck on the 7th needs to be used to pay that one daycare bill. If you used it to pay your car payment as well, that eats up your entire check. You have nothing left over for your variable spending. You're going to need gas. You're going to need food with that paycheck for that week. And so looking at it a month ahead will actually allow you to budget your income for this current month, even though you're looking ahead the following month. So with that last 2 paychecks, you're combining the paychecks, you're writing out the bills you're going to pay with those 2 paychecks, and that gives you, as you can see, yes, a little bit more money than what you saw with the other budgets, but that's because you're dealing with 2 paychecks. This money, this $450, needs to last you 2 weeks instead of 1 because you're planning and budgeting for 2 paychecks here. So I know this might seem very confusing, and I get a lot of people who say, Miko, this looks too complicated. Why can't I just budget my money monthly? And you can. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. budgeting your money monthly but getting paid weekly. I used to do that. It didn't work for me. My mind works better budgeting my money every single time I got paid because I liked having a plan for those dollars the moment I received them. And knowing and being able to say, I want this to go here, here, and here. When you budget your paychecks monthly, it's nice to see yes in a monthly form, but it's really hard to plan out specific plans for those dollars every single time you receive a paycheck. So if you receive an extra paycheck during the month, like in May, most likely you're going to be getting a paycheck on the 31st, which we call an extra paycheck. Make sure you jump into the following month and plan for your bills and what these paychecks, including that extra paycheck, needs to cover for the following month. Because you might not have as much money left over or extra income as you thought, especially when you start looking into your scenario for June and what that income dollars need to cover. So don't just look at the month that you're working on. Always look at the following month, especially when you get paid multiple times a month.
If you found this video helpful, please share it and don't forget to subscribe.